Because I know these leaders of these countries, they're very street smart. They're very smart people. They know what they're doing. They're at the top of their game. We have somebody that's not at the top of his game, never was at the top of a game, never was. We have a guy who's a dumb son of a bitch, and to allow this to happen to our country.
Hey there, guys. So here's something that's a bit alarming that I think we need to talk about. To me, this is just more evidence of a Department of Justice that's possibly, I say possibly just because, we don't have any proof exactly, but most likely being used as a political weapon. And in my view, is likely attempting to shield the Biden administration. And, this case involves Devon Archer, who right as we speak is testifying before Congress. And he was Hunter Biden's longtime business partner. And like I said, he's testifying privately to the House Oversight Committee right now about Hunter Biden's business activities and how Joe Biden might have actually been involved. Now, this is key for Republicans who've been asserting that Joe and Hunter were in business together, possibly with Hunter leveraging his connections to his father. No one's really denying that. And his father, of course, at the time was Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. Now, there's a clip from the New York Post reporter, Miranda Devine, who broke this news about Devon Archer, explaining that he's expected to disclose a lot to Republicans and what exactly he's expected to disclose. So this information, it could be vital if it leads to further inquiries or even potential impeachment proceedings against the president of the United States. But obviously, we got to wait and see how this all unfolds, just like with any political issues. But this story is pretty complex. It's got a lot of layers, and it's important to approach it pretty carefully and with an open mind. Unfortunately, our friends on the other side, our friends on the left, and especially the ones in the media, they don't really believe in any of those things. They don't believe in approaching anything with an open mind. Check out what Miranda Devine has to say. But first, guys, I want to thank everyone that's been subscribing and leaving such positive comments. We really appreciate the support. If you haven't already, please help us with the algorithm. Help us grow and get our message out there. Like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. Every time you do, a leftist loses its wings. Check this out.
Now is the journalist that broke the news on Devon Archer's testimony, New York Post columnist Miranda Devine. It's good to see you, Miranda.
You too, Guy.
All right, so is this actually going to happen on Monday? Because my understanding is these conversations, these interviews, and the expected testimony has been deferred on multiple occasions. Will we finally hear from Mr. Archer next week?
Yes, look, I believe so. I know that there was a lot of toing and froing and dates put up over the last 2 weeks, and they never really settled on one day, but they did settle on this Monday, July 31st, and so I believe that's going ahead. And I don't think Devon Archer wants to put it off again because, he's suffering from death threats and has had to leave his home, and it's all very awkward for him. So I think that chances are he's just going to want to get it over and done with. And of course, Congress goes into their August recess shortly. So I think on both sides, there's a desire to get it out of the way. And, as I previewed on Monday, what Devon Archer is expected to tell Congress and the Oversight Committee is pretty damaging to Joe Biden because it just blows up his entire story about knowing nothing about his son Hunter's overseas business dealings. Here we've got Devon Archer saying that, Joe Biden was dialed in by Hunter on speakerphone on up to 24 occasions to speak with his overseas business partners, that Joe Biden came along to 2 dinners at least at Cafe Milano in Georgetown, again to meet Hunter Biden's business partners, again while he was vice president. So it's very difficult for Joe Biden to sort of continue to stonewall. I noticed that the White House has changed their form of words. Now they're saying Joe Biden is not in business with his son. But, that wasn't the question. That's really leapt forward a good deal.
So here's the situation, man. The testimony could be massive. It might actually be finally the smoking gun evidence that some have been seeking and, to prove the connection between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's business deals. This connection, if proven, it would imply that Joe Biden was not only aware of these deals, but might have actually benefited from them personally. In the sense, that this is really super critical, has really been intensified by the actions that some see as attempts by the DOJ themselves, which of course a critically thinking person can link directly to the Biden administration, to prevent this testimony. They appear to be going to great lengths to stop whistleblowers from testifying, including today with Devon Archer. They've used potential intimidation tactics, or even have attempted to imprison the guy before he can testify before Congress. Now, obviously, these are strong allegations, and it's a situation that we'd all, everyone should be paying attention to, regardless of what side you're on. But most of the country just doesn't seem to care if there's a real connection between the Bidens and all of this foreign money. They don't seem to care that there is foreign money. Why do you think that is? Let me know in the comments. I can't figure it out. They don't seem to care if there was impropriety. But guys, in my opinion, if there was, it needs to be exposed and addressed, not ignored, no matter what side you're on. If there is corruption at the top, it's got to be rooted out. It cannot be allowed to persist. Why are so many people not even curious where the facts lead? Let me know in the comments what you think that answer is. I can't figure it out.
I want to ask you about your investigation, but first, let me get to this breaking news. I have in my hand a letter from the Department of Justice that was sent to the Southern District of New York on Saturday. By the way, Devon Archer is testifying on Monday. Do you usually see the DOJ send letters like this out on a Saturday?
Never. This is the first time I've ever heard of the Department of Justice doing anything on a Saturday.
So what is this letter? Can you walk us through it? The government is apprising the court of the status of Devon Archer's appeal of his judgment of conviction, and they request that the court set a surrender date for the defendant to report to a facility. Please walk us through what this letter says.
Yeah, the letter from the Department of Justice is trying to nudge the judge to go ahead and sentence Devon Archer for something unrelated to what we're going to be talking to him about tomorrow. It's odd that it was issued on a Saturday, and it's odd that it's right before he's scheduled to come in to have an opportunity to speak in front of the House Oversight Committee and tell the American people the truth about what really went on with Burisma. So, I don't know if this is a coincidence, Maria, or if this is another example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice, but I can tell you this. The lengths to which the Biden legal team has gone to try to intimidate our witnesses, to coordinate with the Department of Justice, and to certainly coordinate with the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to encourage people not to cooperate with our investigation, to encourage banks not to turn over bank records, to encourage Treasury not to let us have access to those suspicious activity reports. It's very troubling, and I believe that this is another violation of the law. This is obstruction of justice.
So Devon Archer, Hunter Biden's long-term business partner and friend, is testifying, like I said, before the House committee right now about Joe and Hunter Biden's business dealings. Now, a little background on Archer. He was convicted in 2018 for conspiracy to defraud a Native American tribe, but his sentencing has been delayed over and over again because of appeals. Obviously, rich old white guy, he's got a lot of lawyers back in his play. Now, here's where things get a little interesting. Last Saturday, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York asked the trial judge, a guy named Ronnie Abrams, to schedule a date for Archer to finally go to prison ASAP. This comes after a court of appeals upheld his 1-year sentence just a few days ago. So basically, right before this guy is about to testify to Congress with potentially huge evidence that might link Joe Biden to Hunter Biden's business, the DOJ is nudging the judge to send him to prison. Will it happen? Probably not. But it seems to me like an attempt to rattle the guy at least a little bit before his testimony. But who knows? Maybe it could affect what he's willing to say behind closed doors. I don't know. To me, it looks like a clear case of intimidation. At least they should be aware that it looks really, really bad, But, what we're expecting from Archer, what I'm expecting from Archer is to not be afraid, man. I expect him to shed more light on the connection between Joe and Hunter Biden, and I believe, there's nothing really he can gain from this. So I believe he's doing it just to do it, just to get the monkey off his back. I really don't know. I know it doesn't affect his prison sentence or anything like that. But what's the media's response? Well, they're acting basically just like usual. Some Democrats and liberal media voices are dismissing it as a right-wing vast conspiracy theory. And every time I say that, I hear it in Hillary's voice. It's a curse. Even though they use, the no evidence line to keep actually looking for the evidence. keeps saying nothing's been proven. Well, guys, try to prove something then. Prove it wrong if you think it's wrong, but try to prove something. And still, their mushy brain followers just eat it all up and repeat the same old garbage just like they're told.
Hunter Biden situation, and I understand that you believe this is all being emphasized due to politics that the House Republicans are doing. Let me ask you this: do you think it would behoove the president for him to come out and say, "Hey, I had no business dealings with my son. My son's issues are my son's issues"? Do you think he needs to say that more directly? Because there's a lot of people that believe something else would happen here.
Well, let's be clear about that point, Chuck. There's been a 5-year investigation, 5 years, by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. This investigation started during the Trump administration, and they've come forward with not one shred of evidence tying President Biden to any of this. I am encouraged that, in sharp contrast to President Trump, you've just detailed his mountain of legal problems where President Trump is fighting and pushing back and obstructing. Hunter Biden's come forward, taken responsibility, paid his late taxes. As you just discussed with Chuck Rosenberg, I think the hiccup in the Delaware District Courthouse will get ironed out pretty quickly. And I don't think President Biden needs to say anything more than he has.
House Republicans are going to accuse him.
They are.
They're going to make the accusation.
They're going to accuse him of all sorts of stuff.
Whether they have the evidence or not.
Correct.
The question, and they may have an information ecosystem that helps amplify it to a point where you don't think he needs to just direct, hey, despite what you hear, just so you know, I don't do business with my son or my brother.
I think he's been perfectly clear. Okay. And I think, frankly, what makes the American people turn towards President Biden in the re-election campaign is that he has spent his time focusing on what they're concerned about, not relitigating the 2020 election.
So liberal media, as usual, is backing the Democrats, acting like there's no connection at all, even though we've got a pile of at least very, very circumstantial evidence. It might not be the definitive smoking gun, but if this guy testifies and points directly to Joe Biden being involved in Hunter's business, well, that could literally be the big reveal that we're all waiting for. People like Chuck Todd and some Democrats, they might end up looking pretty foolish for denying this seems obvious to so many of us. It seems so freaking obvious, and they won't even allow themselves to question it. And I understand why. If they question it, their entire very, very fragilely constructed worldview just crumbles. But they probably won't even look foolish at all. They'll just pretend it's nothing and just keep moving on, I'd guess, is what I would do if I was a crazy leftist. But anyway, from what I've seen, it appears that the GOP is steadily building and carefully building its case, while the Department of Justice seems to be throwing up every roadblock and every diversion they possibly can. At the very least, it looks like they're trying to make it trickier for the GOP to find any evidence at all that could lead to what many of us are hoping for, which is Joe Biden and Joe Biden's impeachment. This is never about Hunter Biden. This is about Joe Biden. This is about corruption, alleged corruption at the top of our government. But, we'll just have to wait and see. But guys, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, most importantly, share the Common Sense Garage, and we'll see you in the next one.